Welcome to Growing Testimonies. I have Miss Linda here with us again, and we're going to talk about what does it mean to be a man. And I wanted a female perspective on it, and not just any female, but
Wow.
someone who is well respected by myself as well as others, and has a understanding about balance and equity in relationships, where men and women are concerned. If you watched our last show, she gave me some revelation on how to be mature in relationships, and not to hold grudges, and always to walk in love and have a person's best interest at heart. And I was truly touched and moved during the show and after the show, and just I hope you all are ready for this ride that we're going to take in. If you have any, excuse me, if you have any questions or comments, please log in and type them, because it's going to be a great night tonight.
I
All
think
right.
so.
Yeah.
I'm excited about it. Thank you so much for having me here again with you.
Yay.
Yes. Yes.
Yep. Um, our first topic of discussion was, well, we last show we defined that men were had two main responsibilities: provide and protect. And for the audience as well as Linda, I like to put out there, who should men be protecting, and from what should they be protecting them?
Well, that's just kind of a strange question. I think as well. I've never been a man. Don't want to be one. So I cannot definitely answer that from a male perspective. However, just in the research where I just put the word man in the Bible, and in Genesis, the word man comes up 28 times.
Wow.
Or just the word man, just everything that surrounds a man. And I think that oftentimes we water down what that really means. So your question, as you were saying, is what is a man expected to provide, and who is he expected to protect? Well, just imagine with us having dominion over everything,
Mhm.
fish and fowl and everything, or so we think like, wow, protect. I have that much power over everything that walks, and we have more power than anything that's on the earth. And so, what is it that I should protect? And in a relationship, I think that a man is there to protect the relationship. And
Wow.
in protecting the relationship with the man and the female in it, hence, of course, it is almost a default that he's going to protect her and himself in the relationship. So I would actually kind of start there with that.
Have you, in just your relationships in the past, have you noticed where um, a man was charged with protecting you from himself? Or not even you per se, but just maybe in a friend's relationship? Because I personally, I learned that I haven't always protected my mate from myself and my shortcomings.
Hmm.
And I would just like to have, it, should we hold men to protecting their mates from
Themselves.
themselves?
Well, it's ironic and kind of fun, and I wish I had brought it with me. I've created this little box of cards, and it comes in a card box. You can get it from any 99-cent store. It's the one that, of course, the teachers tell the fifth graders to have their parents to buy them with the index card that fits in it. And in one of the questions that I have on the inside of that box, because I kind of play this game, but the guys never know that I'm playing it with them. And I ask all these thousands of questions that would take us north, east, south, and west. And one of the questions happens to be, warn me about something about you.
Oh,
Warn me,
okay.
because you would know that. And I think oftentimes, because we have this cliche about the representative showing up first, I think at first light of it, they don't realize that there is something they have to protect us from because they are not who they really are. This representative for whatever the short length of time is. And then when it gets down to it, I do think that if they are honest with themselves, they will then realize that I need to either hide this, which you can't hide it for long, or I need to tell you this up front, which is the warn me part,
Okay.
and then let you know that this is what it is. Some, of course, are smart enough to say, but I'm working on it. Some are saying, I have no idea, whether I'll ever not be that. And I can respect that. Yes.
Okay. Um, hmm, you took me to a place. What about in heated discussions? Like it's like, hey, look, I'm getting upset and I'm trying to walk away, and he's being constantly challenged. What do you suggest for that?
It wow, you know what? The Holy Spirit is really, really just
Moving.
taking over. I am on the panel for Black Marriage Day.
Oh, okay.
Yes, I am, and I support them. The guy that owns Chick-fil-A, he has a panel and it goes all over. And Sunday, the 17th, was actually Black Marriage Day, and what they're trying to do is to promote Black marriages in the home, of course, because they realize that the lowest percentage of marriages are in the Black communities.
Wow.
Hence, with that, the children are the school, the systems typically are not the best in those particular communities. And then, of course, the finances together are not, of course, as high as other communities where they're married. So it just has this trickling down effect because the Black marriages are not, the percentage is not as high. And so I'm the only single there. And it's about 15 other married couples, and they're all sitting around. And I ended up facilitating a conversation just like what you're asking me about a husband and a wife. And so I think that has to be something that they realize about their personalities. If he needs, for instance, this one husband said, I just asked my wife just to give me a minute.
Mm-hmm.
And I just need her to give me this minute. So I asked him, most of the time when people cannot give you that minute, it's only because they're not understanding, they're not sure that you understand what they need from you. So I asked him, what if you say, I understand that you need me to talk to you right now about this. However, I need a minute to think about this because I've got to make the final decision. Because all she needs to do is to walk away and know that she's not eliminated from your process of thinking.
Okay.
Just like she needs to say, I understand that you need a minute to take care of this. Will you come back to me and include me in? For him to say yes. So they, at that particular point of silence or quiet or whatever, they both rest in knowing that they're both thought about.
Okay.
Yes.
Yeah, that's cool. That's cool.
Mm-hmm.
When we talk about protection from self, sometimes we have, just going back to it, we have some shortcomings,
Yes, we all do.
And you said, we should let people know up front, and sometimes it's difficult to have these conversations up front because it's not on the forefront of our minds all the time.
Because we're with ourselves so much, we forget.
Right.
Yeah, we kind of take it for granted. We know that's how we are, but we forget to announce that.
Right, right. And sometimes it takes certain situations or certain transfers of energy between this person or that person to pull certain characteristics out.
I agree.
Because when you're dealing it's just reality. In less mature relationships, they're more provoking type issues where, sometimes the woman can be more mature than the male, and certain things may not be provoked, from that,
Exactly.
exchange or
Right.
whatever. So, I think, that when you're saying that take a minute, or when I have shortcomings, like, for example, if I'm not as educated as I should be, I think at the very minimum, every man should get a high school diploma and some, trade skill or something extra to that, these days that can, allow for provision.
Right.
Right. And I think that protects the household to say you being supplied for. Because if you come out of high school with just a diploma, you can at least go to the military.
Right.
But without a high school diploma, you cannot enroll in the military.
Which makes it hard for you to provide. I called up one of the guys before I came to the show, and I asked this question to him.
Okay.
I kind of posed it. I was trying to get a couple guys on the phone to ask them so I could have several opinions about it to see if it kind of bumped into mine. And I asked him, and let me just get his quote here because I did take notes because I don't want to waste that. I asked him, what does he think that a man is supposed to protect, and what should he provide? And his answer was, first of all, he believes that he is supposed to do both.
Okay.
He does believe that. He agrees, ladies. So we got him going right here.
Hey.
And then he said that he thinks that he's supposed to protect her from hurt, harm, danger, and make sure that he protects her spiritually.
Oh, okay.
If he's praying over her, for her, and with her, and he believes in the word and God, and it lines up right, that he is actually the protector because, of course, he is closer to God, and then of course, he protects her because he's receiving it, and he's going to be the one that's going to pray over them and to make sure that they're kind of going where they need to go. So he feels like that's a form of protection as well.
I agree with that. And let me just add a little further to that. Confessing over your mate is also like praying over your mate. When you confess in scriptures, I have the Proverbs 31 wife, even if you don't, or I have the Proverbs 31 mate, or what have you, because
The Boaz man. Or,
right. You can do that either way. You know what I'm saying? Exactly.
Yeah.
But just in defining manhood, we have to lead in love, and we have to lead in prayer. And I think that when you establish see, we're going back to this triangle, and as a man, you're over here in this corner over here, and your focus should be on God in that relationship, with the mate, or even with your children, okay? And as long as you focused on God and help trust Him, you can be led in so many areas where you don't have to come to imminent danger for protection. You can be warned, don't leave the house right now. You can be warned and received. But when you don't establish that relationship, you don't know when God is talking to you or not. And you make your household and whatever you're responsible for, or whatever you're supposed to be protecting, vulnerable because of your lack of preparation to be in the position that you did.
And connectivity in that relationship with God. You're right, because you're kind of just disconnected. Which, of course, anytime we use the word disconnected, of course, there is a hole there. Mm-hmm. So that disconnection from that man to God, there is a hole, and in that, anything can happen inside of that, in that gap between mm-hmm. him and God in terms of that house. And so he did say, and we'll go on. He said he thinks that he should provide as well, not just financially though.
Right.
He did say that. Not just financially. He thinks that he should be the breadwinner. He thinks he should provide pleasure and balance, of course, to make sure that she is spiritually fit, body, mind, and soul. He thinks that he needs to make sure that all of those things are provided in the household. It's just like a man wants his house to be his castle. And without him providing those things or so, I think it can kind of wreak havoc in the house with not having that balance and that serenity or so that you guys so look for.
Okay. I got a question. How does a man go about that with maybe a stubborn mate? Maybe someone who has a weight issue and doesn't necessarily want to do anything about it. And even with that, is, before you answer that question, do you personally, or from who you poll, do you think it's a man's job to provide happiness for that woman?
I think it's impossible.
Thank you.
I think it's impossible. And it's not ironic again that you asked that question. I am single, and I've been single for quite some time now. And all of my married couple friends, they just think that I should just be married yesterday, and why aren't you, or so. So at that brunch on Sunday, one of my married male friends asked me if I thought my expectations were too high. And I wasn't quick to answer. I thought, well, let me just really think. And so I answered and told him, no, I really, really do not think so. Because mine is that he has to be wealthy mentally, emotionally, and spiritually. And in that, he will be a sweet heart, and he will be a gentle man. And those are all my only requirements. So I can't imagine that would be an expectation that was too high.
Yeah.
Because that's what I'm able to bring to the table, and I'm not willing for my feelings, for my thoughts, not to be processed through a sweetheart, to God and back to me. Because even in that situation that you were just kind of alluding to, what if you had a mate that was stubborn? I think there's anything that if it's done in love, and they know that they love them, and they give it to them like that. They have to be patient sometimes and wait for God to move them, because it's not for us to be able to do it and to be able to believe in that. And if we're not happy, and there's nothing that happiness can have to attach to, mm-hmm. that you're adding to it, I think it's very, very impossible for any man or any woman to make the other one happy, because if it's nothing there, it's just like pouring water into an empty hole
Right.
forever and ever and ever. I don't think you could ever fill it up.
Right, right, right. I appreciate that answer. Welcome, Chipotle. Thank you for joining us. Um, I I I, I hear you saying that in a sense that it's not our job to fix our mate.
I don't. I think it's our job to be supportive of whatever is necessary if they want to be fixed.
Hmm. Okay.
I think they would have to want that.
I appreciate that, and I like how you said that. You know, it's we take it to God. You know, and that goes back to that triangle. We have to stay focused on Him and confess over our mate so that He can change her, and then that cuts out that friction from unnecessary confrontation.
Yes.
I guess kind of going back to that protection piece. How when there are differences and he's feeling like he's being led by God, and let's just assume that everything's in order. How does a mate stand up? God bless you.
Thank you. Thank you.
How does a man stand up to his mate when he feels things are out of line, or he's not necessarily that he's trying to put his foot down, but trying to establish that, hey, we have to go this way. How's that communicated, or if everything's right, should there be an issue?
Well, I just think that that's what we call rules of engagement.
Okay.
And those rules of engagement, when I was married, and I went through counseling, and I'll never ever forget this. And this is a cute little story, so let me just kind of just tell you a little story.
Okay.
And then I'll get to that answer. The minister or the pastor that was giving us the tutorial, and we had to go back then. It was 6 months, not just a couple of weeks before he got married or something.
Oh wow.
And he told the story that there was a child who came to his grandfather and said, "Granddad, why are you in such good health?" And he said, "Well, when your grandmother and I got married, we had agreed that if we ever got into an argument, one of us would take a walk. And grandson, I've been walking ever since." And the moral of the story is that their rule of engagement was that if we ever got in a heated argument, one of us would take a walk, because if we're both talking, nobody's listening. And when we're heated, everybody's talking, nobody's listening. So somebody had to walk off and take a walk and come back for them to talk about it. And that was what their rule of engagement was. Okay. So if that walking off didn't mean I'm leaving it, that's what we had said. So to go back to that answer, I think that when everything is good, you have to establish what the rules are going to be when it's not good, because it's really, really hard to make the rules in the middle of something when it's not good, because it always seems like the rules are going to favor whoever's making that rule.
Right.
So you have to be mindful about that as well. So no, do I ever think that the man has to put his foot down per se? I don't really think that, but I do think that it needs to be honored that the man does have the last word, and we need to agree with that from the beginning. Or say, for instance, there are several topics where we'll say, in this particular case, I will always be able to make that word. So say, for instance, if I was married to a financial guru, it would be kind of crazy for me to try to argue with him about what we should be doing with the investments and something. So say, for instance, your wife was the best at redesigning the house with the contractors, and that's what she did. I think you making a final decision on that when you don't have that level of expertise would be kind of crazy. So I think we need to use our common sense about it. But when we get to it, I do think that when we get to what they call as a place where we can't decide, I do think that somewhere along the way it needs to say, if we've prayed about it, I think he does get to call it a decision, because a real man is willing to make a decision and bear the consequences.
Oh, I appreciate that. And I like your comment, Chipotle, recognizing strengths and weaknesses. I appreciate that. And that kind of takes us into another area. I think I had that question somewhere else. But I love that answer, because at some point, you have to recognize, your mate's strengths. And if you are going to make the final call, let the final call be reasonable to say, you're stronger than me at that.
Yes.
And be safe enough in the relationship, to say that I got to make the final decision on everything. Well, that's more of a traditional myth.
Yes.
That's not really what makes life functional.
Right.
The functional thing is you're better at the interior design. I'm better, for your example, at the financial things.
Right.
So let's learn to trust each other in these. And like you said, in the beginning of a relationship, it's good to establish that because, like you said, in heated arguments, it becomes so biased. Well, you're making up this rule, whether I'm biased or not,
Right. It
to
just
suit,
won't.
yeah, to suit you. You know,
It don't look like it anyway.
right, right, because the tempers are there. You know,
Yeah.
yeah.
But I do think, ladies, and this is to the ladies.
Go ahead.
Ladies, I do think that, however, I think we have to be honest and fair because in most of the cases, we want the guys to pick up the weight and kind of carry us where we need to go. And I think that it's quite unfair if we expecting them to do that, but not respect their decision making. But if it doesn't go right, we're looking for them to again to pick up that weight and carry it. So we have to be very consistent in that if it's good on one end, it's just as good on the other end. And we have to be really, really fair about that as well.
I totally appreciate that because every man has an ego, and
like God,
right, exactly, and wants a cheerleader. You know, wants a cheerleader. You know, whether they, you know, score a touchdown or make a fumble. You know, and I think that you know, in terms of defining a man, when he finds that woman who cheers him on and says, "Baby, it's gonna be okay," you know, let's just keep pushing forward. When he finds that type of woman, that turns him into the Superman because he doesn't want to fail again because he recognizes she loves him so much that she has just hit that intrinsic, you know, desire to please my mate. And that, you know, going back to that pleasing, the guy said, you know, that I want to please my mate so that she can cheer me when things are good, because she cheered me when I was down when she didn't have to, you know. And you know, it's in so many relationships you see the dysfunctional act of, you know, I told you so, I told you not to do that, and you know that does not make a conducive relationship. It does not enhance the love relay.
Right.
You know,
it doesn't breed a place of, and it doesn't breed, I think, a place of confidence either for them to be able to want to try that in front of us again.
right.
So what will happen is we will make it where men will secretly try to accomplish some things, and what they'll only do is to tell us the things that they've accomplished and they've done something. They won't tell us the other part, which means eventually we'll be only a part of half of their lives.
Right. It creates boundaries. It creates unnecessary secrets, and that's dangerous because, you know, as a mate, I may have a female who's attracted me at work, and I may want to know, like, I'm at work and I don't want to lose this job, and I'm coming to you as wife to say, hey, how do you think I should handle this? Or I'm coming to you to talk about it. Or maybe I want you to handle it. And if you fly off the end and say, you know, what you doing talking to that woman for, you doing something, you know, and there goes it, and it's like, I never tell you anything.
Exactly.
And if I handle it my way, and my way is not the most conducive, and my way, you know, once I go into this shell, you know, it just constantly damages and withers away the bonds, you know, they keep you together.
I agree. But if we believe that there is nothing new under the sun, and God told us that.
Amen.
There's nothing new under the sun at all. And if we believe that, whatever it is we're supposed to know, we're going to eventually know it anyway.
Right.
So all we have to do is, if we remain pure in what it is that we need to do in terms of that support, when it doesn't become pure and it really isn't like that, you don't have to go looking for it. You don't have to ask for it. All you have to do is wait on it, because believe me, God will bring it right to you.
Mm-hmm.
But if you're operating, meaning you, us women, if we're operating in the right place for our man and we're giving him what we need, I promise you, you don't have to look for anything. God will just bring it right to you. He'll reveal it to you to let you know, because just like God, the man is made in God's image. He is just going to protect us. He's just going to make sure that we know what we need to be doing,
right,
and how to see it. So
Amen.
it just works.
Right.
Yeah.
Okay. A lot of guys have this notion of being hard and tough. And what ways can men portray this characteristic and make it more conducive to them establishing their manhood?
I actually think that it's more manly not to be hard and tough. But that's just mine.
Okay.
Now don't get it twisted. I like a man that's got a little swag, you know, and a little hard. But I want the hard to only be in the muscles and only to be in a brain muscle, but I don't need to flex it anywhere else. Because I think that a gentle spirit and a gentle heart and a gentle man, a sweetheart, will get more done by far than a man who is rough and tough and kind of going in, tearing up, taking down, taking names, and that kind of thing. Because I think that people will stop listening to him at some point.
Do you think it's tougher or stronger to be mentally tough than it is physically tough, based on what you just said?
I do. I do think that it could be tougher because it doesn't take anything for me to ball up a fist. It takes a lot for a man to think about the consequences, even when his spirit feels threatened or his ego is a little damaged or so. He's got to hold back some things and process it through a brain muscle to make sure that that decision is something that he that can be proud of and the consequences. So it could be a little bit harder to do. However, I think that men are built for it.
Yeah. I love that. I love that. Um, Time to share just a moment of mental toughness. I was challenged today with my colleague, and he's making a joke about the Chipotle lunch because there was uh, oh, and we're advertising for them. Anyway, we went to this particular restaurant, and they were serving food, and the lady was, rushed because it was lunchtime, and I had 4 orders that we were taking at one time, and I felt rushed, so to try and be sensitive to understanding that she's not able to handle the pressure too well, I'm trying to hurry up and, go through the orders, and I even rechange it where I just did one at a time as if I was one individual, to go through each order, right, or what have you. Because they're sitting there preparing it, and the lines were all around the restaurant or what have you. And at the end of it, so I feel like I tried to accommodate, where her mental pressure was. Not that this is my mate or anything, right, but
she's on the other side of the glass.
Right. I'm just trying to respect her mindset at the time. So, and I, in my mind, and I didn't communicate to her that I was doing this, but I did. I'm sure she noticed the change up because I was, as they're going down through the order, once you get past a certain point, you can't go back and get this added or whatever on there. So anyway, we get to the end, and she wraps it up, and then she slams it down, and then slams the sauce on it. So I'm like, I'm totally caught off guard because right now I feel like I just tried to modify, based on your
embrace this whole lunchtime process. Yes.
Right. Because really, my 4 orders represent 4 individual people, right, right here lined up. So. So I'm like, at this point, I became confrontational. I'm not proud of it, but I became confrontational. I'm like, so we're just slamming food down? She refused. So I said, ma'am, are we just slamming food down? You know what I'm saying? And I just said, you know what? Let me stop. Because if she says anything back, it's probably going to be a food fight or something. I may not have any inhibition. So I had to catch myself right there. And then I said, you know what? These are 2 people of color, and, it's just going to promote a stereotype. So I said, you know what? Because I don't want to come pay this establishment to serve me like this. I told the manager. He said she's had problems with this before and pulled her from the line. I don't know if she got fired for it or what, but I said, it's my responsibility to go ahead and report this issue because nobody else should have to deal with that. If you are ordering for 10 people, they should be happy that they got one customer paying for 10 different meals. You know what I'm saying? And I'm sure at somebody's job, we've all had somebody to go get orders for several people at one time, right, and that represents individuals. Yes. And I think so often that our youth, don't understand that, and I put this charge on fathers. Fathers, if you don't raise your daughters to understand that, they should have a certain amount of respect in public, whether dealing with men or women, just a certain amount of respect in public with people with whom they're dealing, they can't expect to keep a job, especially in this growing global, marketplace for employees. And
I get that, but I need to go back to you and what you said in terms of where you're going with this about being tough. When you said, so we slamming food, and we're slamming food. Let me ask you this: is that really what you wanted to say?
No, that's not. I really had some.
Oh, you have more than that to say.
I really had to just cut it because I said I don't want to get in a confrontation. Because
Okay.
if she says anything to me, it's going to be a confrontation. So I was glad. I said, wow, that was God protecting me, holding her mouth still. Because anything she would have said wouldn't have been the right thing.
So what I guess I'm trying to get you to be is to see if you could have backed up and been really tough by not saying anything except to the manager and not to her.
Right. And I'll just say the human side of me got caught off guard
Okay.
because I did not expect. I thought that I was being, extra nice as a customer coming to this establishment, whereas, then you slight me. It's like kind of like you stabbed me after I tried to modify to help whatever lack of processing that you could do under pressure,
Right.
So I felt like I was protecting there, but then I know I wasn't protecting when I said so we're just slamming food down, because it caught me so off guard. I'm just like,
How did we get to that?
how did we get to this?
After what we thought we were going through.
Right, because I'm not coming to this type of establishment for this type of service. If I wanted that type of service, I could go to some other establishment,
All right.
Where I could pay a lot less for the food and just get it as it comes. But so many restaurants now are, everybody's taking on this welcoming attitude. I was just totally caught off guard, and I recognize it. As my father told me, he said, you don't have a right at any time to be caught off guard by people, especially in public or at home. You need to, become centered enough within yourself that
where it doesn't make you off balance.
Right.
When people do things. Exactly.
Right. And like I said, I'm still a work in progress, but
let me just ask you this: what if a date was with you?
Mm-hmm.
What if it was a lady that you were with and had been there to your right or to your left? Would you have had that same response, or would you have hidden that response, which is what we're talking about, the things that some people may not see yet? Would you have hidden it?
I felt like I really guarded it because there's another side of me, from the past that I'm not trying to look back at my past, but like, might have said some exclamations, with that, and I really, like I said, there could have been a food fight. You know what I'm saying? 'Cause my first to be naked with it. My first reaction was, let me throw this back at you. You know what I'm saying? That was really my first reaction. Let me just throw this back at you like you just threw it. You know what I'm saying? Throwing it. And I'm just like, so even though something came out, it was cut. It was watered down a lot more than the just natural reaction.
So let me add something to that. So say, for instance, let's use that same scenario, ladies and gentlemen. We're talking about men and what we as women, I guess, can do when we know that we are in the lives of real men. So say, for instance, that same thing had come through, and I realized, and I knew that could have been a hot button for you. I would have hoped that you would have looked at me and knew that I would have handled it differently, and that tough we're talking about, and that hard and that tough
mental
to stand back,
right.
that mental toughness to stand back and say, I'm not gonna say anything. She's gonna do that, because that would have been what I would have been able to do.
You saying your role to handle the situation?
Yes, because that is something that is easy for me. It's almost kind of like we were talking about the construction and the finances, or however we're there together. I know that that's not necessarily where you are, where you want to be, or that may be one of your strongest suits, where your finances are. Like we were talking.
I got you. Yes. I understand.
I'm just saying. So would you have, in our relationship, because that's our rules of engagement, would you have been tough enough to step back and be quiet to let me do that?
Oh, most definitely.
You know what I'm saying?
If you're right there, yeah, I think I would have had more desire to let you handle that situation, especially it being a female.
Would it have been harder for you? Would it have been hard? Because is it hard being tough? Is what we're saying.
Sometimes it is.
Okay.
Especially dealing with the situation. Now let's flip it. If it was a man that did that, I wouldn't have let you handle it. I would have, probably wanted to handle it myself. And I'm just being naked with the human expression.
So let's just say that our rules of engagement would be, whomever it is, whenever, if I am the best at that, then our rules of engagement, or our rule would be, you have to handle that, male or female, and different, because right then the gender doesn't matter, because it is the situation that I would handle. Yeah, exactly.
Okay. Okay.
Mhm.
And I can respect that because it's more of I'm being agitated,
Mhm.
and since you're not, you can probably better handle that. And maybe vice versa. If you're being agitated, and the only reason I say if a man, because if you
Mhm.
handle it, he said something disrespectful to you, it would have took it to a different level. It would have been a different level of protection there. Like, no, you're not going to dishonor her and say that. You
Right.
get what I'm saying?
And then you could have, I would, and then that we back to that protect.
Right.
We back to that
Full
protect. So
circle. Right.
then,
Right.
so now we're at this is when you would, I think, protect me
Right.
from someone being
Out of line.
disrespectful to
Right.
me. I think then I would have, and let me just say this: you probably would not have even had to take it because then I would have. It would have been probably silently, but I would have moved back, and you would have stepped up like, okay, you can have it from here. Because see, the thing is, I would have been saying, you probably should have let me save you when I was. You probably should have, because
Right.
of course my response probably would have been, I can understand that this is probably not easy for you today. However, this is not what we're going to do. So let's just do it over again, put it in the bag so we can go. I probably would have helped her too and let her have a way out of this to have to do it because it would have been harder for her to fix it right then, and that's what I would have made it. But it would have seemed like it wasn't. But she would have had to fix it. I probably wouldn't have had to tell her because by the time she went through all that, she would have gotten a lesson. Right. But it would have been soft and quiet, and she would have done it, and I would have allowed her to do it.
Right.
Yes.
Right. And I appreciate that, because it like I said, I am still a work in progress, and that makes it more of an evolution, of the process because walking and look, you're never going to be perfect.
Right. Never.
No matter how we want to philosophize and uh, and I'm not going to say and try, through our own efforts to apply the word of God in our life. We still have that human factor. We still have, rough edges that need to be, shut off, and that, have our iron sharpened so that we can become better. And thus the purpose of this show, to help everybody see that we all have some growing to do, and this is our testimony. But going back to manhood, let's move on because we're talking about a lot of these questions up here. Even with how to treat a lady.
Okay.
Because even in that treating of that lady, she was not called out her name.
Right.
Um, she was, there was no assault on her in any type of form. And there was once there was a recognition once that pause button was found to step back and say, you know what, this is not, I shouldn't be confronting her. She's not the person I need to confront. I need to follow protocol. This is a business establishment because one of our questions is number 8, how much muscle or fitness should men use when correcting behavior with children, mate, colleagues, or people in public? So this goes to that people in public.
Yes.
When dealing with people in public, I think we just answered that. Find who's in charge.
So let's answer the how much muscle. Let's talk about which muscle.
Right. Exactly. Right.
So how much heart muscle? As much as you have. How much brain muscle? As much as you can come up with. How much physical muscle? Probably the least of the muscle as possible.
Right. And sometimes that mouth muscle just needs to not work at all.
Yes.
Because when you open your mouth, you're guiding. You're guiding something. And it's not going to be too likely that when in heated moments that you're going to say the best of things on that situation. So sometimes we have to learn not to open that mouth. I think in Colossians chapter 3 is somewhere in Colossians it talks about that mouth and it being a deadly weapon, untamable, force, and once it sets that fire going, it's hard to put it out. So, um, thank you, Chipotle. Let us not forget the tongue. We have to be careful of what we say. And
can't take it back.
Right. Because some people will never forgive you for things done or said to them. And just with that, we have different circumstances in public. Sometimes there is no authority in public. For example, It was
Well, I think there's always an authority.
well, in the terms of sometimes we may just be on the street, and I'm with you. I see where you're going with that. Sometimes we may be on the street, and there may be some person that's maybe begging you for money.
And it's funny that you said that, because even when somebody is, I will not say that I don't have it and not give it to them. You know how they'll say, "Do you have?" Or so I won't say that I don't have it. And to a man that asked me for money, because I was raised in a society where men are not supposed to ask women for money, I will say, "I just don't think you should be asking me, sir." I will say that. And I'll keep it. And I haven't ever gotten any kickback from it. I think if nothing else, probably by the time I keep walking, it leaves him in a place where he probably is thinking, and he's probably on to the next one. But at least at that particular point, it's a pause point for him. I don't think that a
A
man
pause
should
for
ask me.
escape. Yeah.
Yes, and a pause for him, and maybe the next woman he doesn't ask. But I will say, I just don't think you should be asking me for money.
Right.
You know, that kind of thing.
Right.
And when it's a woman or a child, I will ask, maybe based on what they're asking that they're going to do for it. I may say, well, let me purchase that for you, or or I may even say, not today, but I won't say I don't have the money.
Right. Right. I see spiritually where you're going with that.
Yes. Yes. But anyway, we were talking about authority in public. I was going to say that I think that our values, our morals, and our ethics is always our authority in public. Because our values is what we will or will not do. Our morals, what we'll do for somebody else or won't do. And then there's ethics that just kind of base that society, whether or not ethically I'm going to be doing it out here in public or not.
Right.
So even
right.
without it being an authority in a suit, I think we carry around our morals and our values, and that's kind of that authority in public.
Right. And for those, and I appreciate that cooling period. Thank you, Chipotle Lunch. Um, you with your comment, you allow for a cooling period, and I think as men we need to learn. I think you never stop growing if you allow yourself. If you allow yourself to grow.
Right.
Some people can stay stagnant. And I think when we're so willing to have challenging conversations and confrontations, it's using more of the physical muscles versus sometimes we need to take that step back. Just the same as the heated conversations at home. Take the step back. So in public, especially when your children around or your mate is around, or if not, because you never know what the other person has going on with them.
And you don't ever know who's watching and what they're learning while they're watching either.
Exactly. Yeah. Exactly. And if you establish yourself as a hothead or someone easily provoked, and willing to go all out, for what, a stranger on the street, or because you've been disrespected, it shows more weakness than it does toughness. And
I want to ask Chipotle about that cooling period that he says that is necessary. So I really want to know how long, if you can let us know what kind of cooling period are we talking about? Because I think sometimes people are insulted by the length of time that someone takes during a cooling period. Like, okay, so you're not going to speak for 2 days. You're not talking about it for hours. I mean, it has gotten you so discombobulated until everything kind of goes. I mean, what kind of cooling period are we talking about?
Suppose, what kind of cooling period do you recommend, or what kind of cooling period are you talking about? And while he gets his answer ready, I would like to say, I think the length of the cooling period determines the maturity of the person.
I do too.
Because, and advice for women, when it takes a mate, and I just say for women and men, when it takes a mate an extended period of time to cool down, you are recognizing how mature they are and how much they really do care, about the relationship. Because sometimes anger can be selfishly motivated because I can't have my way, or why can't we let go? Why can't we let go past this?
Yeah.
Right. Is it so important that you have to have your understanding about it? At some point in relationships, it's and speaking about men, but either way, sometimes we have to learn to overstand what we can't understand. Meaning, I can accept this and move forward without necessarily having the understanding of it all. Because as men and women, we do have different perceptions, concepts, you know, and viewpoints on certain things and emotions that can be triggered based on different.
I have such a story I'd like to share.
Go ahead, go ahead, go ahead.
This is so new. This was just Saturday. Saturday.
Hold on before you, because he just said, "Don't let the sun go down on your wrath," and that's scripture. Thank you, Chipotle.
Good.
Go ahead. Don't let. And then you said you're going to share a story. Thank you all for being patient.
Yes, and that's a perfect answer, and probably kind of what I was looking for.
Mm-hmm.
And even in this story, I was in the car with a gentleman on Saturday.
Okay.
And we're going to a really nice event, and we're dressed, and we're on the way. Everybody looks good. I'm just telling you, and we're driving, and he's driving, and we get to a stop sign, and another car does something or something, and I see him just kind of rise up and say, of course, I don't know if it's road rage or whatever, and he says, well, wonder why they're doing this, and wonder why, and it just kind of caught me like,
oh, good.
Well, not even off guard, because I noticed that, and here's what I was noticing. Wow, how far that threw him off center from where we were. And I'm thinking in my head, I didn't say this out loud yet because I'm still watching. In my head, I am thinking, we are in this cabin.
Right.
Car hasn't hit us.
Right.
Jazz music playing nicely. Everybody dressed, car clean, going somewhere great. How quickly he went on the outside of all of that and let that kind of disturb his person.
Right.
I watched. I didn't say anything. I thought, wow. And I'm riding. I'm thinking, see, I need to be in my own car. Woo! I need to be in my own car. So anyway, I'm saying that to say that I watched that and I wondered, why did that get to him so deeply? We go on, we're furthering, we're going again. It happens again. And mind you, none of it is ever directed to me. It's almost kind of like an out of body experience as I'm watching it, thinking all of a sudden, none of this right here in the present really mattered. He just kind of came up out of himself, recognized the traffic, something else, some other car. Look at them, wonder why, or so. And I'm just sitting and being really, really quiet and wondering if he's going to notice that I am not where he is in this outer body experience.
Yeah, and that party.
And then later on we get there and I'm wondering, is his spirit going to be okay, or was he that thrown off? Or how long was that cooling period going to take to get those two things processed through his system and out? And I watched it, and that's why I was wondering, like, how long is that and when is that? And to me, I just think it's kind of crazy that even something that can throw you off, that I understand the differences in people. But to me, that's kind of crazy. Like something that doesn't touch me. And I have a rule of thumb in my car. As long as it doesn't hit my car, it doesn't change anything.
Amen.
As long as I have brakes and steering wheel, I can control where I am. And they don't control anything, it doesn't bother me. And it was just really astonishing to watch and wonder how long that cooling period was going to be. So he didn't let the sun go down before he changed it, but I was thinking how it messed him up for some periods of times that it just really didn't have to.
Right, and that wasn't even an intimate experience.
Right.
And, just to go there, with men and their intimate mates, when something is thrown up as a stab in the relationship, meaning I've told you something, dear to me, and you go back and use that against me. And this happens with men and women, and we learn it from, other relationships, whether, parents, watching other people or experiencing ourselves. But, I learned recently that devil means, from its Greek root of diablo, means one who stabs with words.
That's devil?
That's the definition of devil. I know. Wow. I just learned that, Pastor Joseph Prince. And looking at that and looking at how we allow devils to come out of our mouth and stab each other with words when we say these things sincerely. And, when in terms of what defines a man, his sensitivity, and I can tell you with that particular guy, if you said something about that situation later on, see, you got a temper, because when we was in that car, you just reared up, and now you just getting all up, what I'm saying? He could, based on his maturity level, he could receive that as a stab on him Well, you throwing it up. That wasn't even directed at you. But now you're gonna take that as something against you. But at the same time, he didn't realize that he wasn't protecting you with the mood because you were more in tune with I just want to enjoy your presence versus
And I have said something.
okay, but I'm just saying, you know,
But it was easy.
oh,
And I did it out of love and just said, what bothered you so much about that?
but see,
I wanted
you
to
didn't
know.
stab him with that in the sense that your approach. See, we can say anything; it's just how we say it.
You're
Now,
right.
if you saying that in a questioning thing, meaning you already know the answer, but just like I have an ulterior agenda with this.
Kind of judgment.
Right, I'm already judging you
You.
based on the tone. So does that really, you know? So would you know? Say what you said again. The question
I
you
just
asked.
just asked, what bothered you so much about that?
Now that tone versus. So what bothered you so much about that situation? I mean, it's a different way
It
that
is
they
a
can be
different way.
worded and said to make it a stab versus I really care. And you know, in relationships, we can establish, you know, care. You know, and sometimes a person, even if you do come sincere about it, based on their maturity in a relationship,
They hear it.
it's received totally different because the guilt based on them being wrong for destroying the environment of relaxing, you know, leisure time, you know, can create a
Well,
a
they have to
total different.
defend it.
Right, they feel
It's a
defensive.
defense.
Right. It creates a defensive environment
Right.
because now I realize now I got fear going on, and my courage level is low because it's like, you know, I like this woman and I don't want to, you know, risk losing. And we're talking about what defines being a man. You know,
Yes.
you know, because dealing with you at the level in which you are, I don't necessarily want to lose, you know, somebody like you. So
And I don't, and I care about what you think about me. So what
right.
I'm going to do is defend it, so you don't think what I think you're thinking about me. When really, in all actuality, I am trying not to think anything about you yet until I ask you.
And on top of that, in terms of being the most mature man about it, it would probably be best to just be honest about it. So many times we can stop being defensive and be productive in our relationships and just tell the truth. You know, the truth is, my first reaction was wanting to throw that bowl back and say, "Here, you take that, you eat that, you put that energy." You know what I'm saying? You
Don't
know,
put that energy in my
yeah,
food.
don't put that energy in my food. You know, and then you know, but at the time, at that point, it protects her to let her know, do you want to deal with a person like me? You know, who has this inner thought, and I'm willing to share this naked thought with you,
Right.
even though it was watered down to say, is this what we're doing? You know, for somebody who's spending, you know, money for multiple, you know, entrees, you know, versus, you know, or even in that situation, be courageous and say, hey, look, you know, I got a problem with road rage, and thank you for bringing that out to me, you know, and for those who do have road rage, my dad said something to me. He said, you don't own any street you drive on. It's public property. So what are you fighting over? And going back to the tough and hard, so there's a high correlation with people living in lower income places where they're renting, and I'm not showing you, it's just what the numbers say, and fighting over territories, whether it's gang, you know, or whether it's, you know, drug related,
Where they don't own it.
where they don't own it, you know, and just to go back on being tough, why not be so tough to say, you know what, I'm gonna fight for my right to go to school and get a better education so I can get my family out of here. I'm going to fight for my right to, you know, if I have, you know, great size and this and that, I'm going to fight for my right to, you know, expand my horizon and, you know, I'm a play sports and make sure my grades are on point so that I can I can have some venue into college, you know, and not saying college is guaranteed fixed, but you know,
you're just saying fight for something that is going to be beneficial.
Be beneficial to my family versus detrimental. Whereas I got to worry about, you know, the tough thug, you know, and I got to bail you out of jail because you're making weak-minded decisions. Right. You know, I think the toughest, you know, people, you know, are looking past the neighborhood, looking past the city. I'm looking to enable my family you know, so that we can be better, we can be bigger than what we have right now. You know, and I'm not saying every man should have ambition to have great and big things. No, but I do think you should be able to provide. You know, when you know, you shouldn't go around in a position where you have to hold your hand out and
Well,
go.
just think about it. You were just talking about providing.
Right.
And remember, originally I had told you I had asked the guy about providing, and he said providing balance and pleasure and peace or so. And oftentimes men feel like that peace that they so want. And I realize I think that you guys want it a lot more than women don't really have to have it as much. I don't realize that you realize how much you have to put into it to get that peace. So just say, for instance, the guy who could not remain settled in his spirit enough just to be in a car cabin as small as that was, moving them vehicles down the street, left and right turns or so. How are you going to be in a home and to balance that if one something just kind of comes through and upsets that entire home?
Right.
Because that's still that same cabin space that you have to just decide, no, wait a minute, hold on, what is this? And figure it out and keep that balance.
Right. Are you gonna? How can you set the atmosphere? You know, and a lot of times as men protecting us from ourselves, if we're angry with something at work, we have to make sure we remove that before we come home.
Are you, as a man, are you guys as men expecting the woman because she's a nurturer to give that balance?
I think it depends on the maturity level of the man.
Okay.
Now, I would say there have been some traditions which say you need to find somebody that completes you. And this can go both ways. And, you know, some men find comfort in the nurturing of a woman. Oh, baby, it's going to be all right. You had a bad day. And I think depending on what it is, you know, if you had a loss of a close relative or something, yeah, you need to be comforted or something like that. You know what I'm saying? You know, but when it comes down to, I just had a bad day at work and it wasn't an extremely bad day. You know, I just had, you know, I may have had a difficult, yeah, it was work. You know, maybe if I had a, you know, somebody who really doesn't matter, you know what I'm saying, just made me upset. You need to get rid of that energy before you come home. You need to, you know, just get that off of you, you know, and wash your mind, you know, speak over yourself, you know, do whatever you need to do
and not bring it into
the house.
Into that.
Because when you bring that spirit into the house, you know, you're setting the atmosphere, you know, because your mate may be in a good mood, but when you come in, she has that sixth sense. And she can sense from you that which is going on, which can irritate her spirit and cause, you know, certain things to react or happen in a certain way, you know.
Right.
And even especially with your children, because your children are very impressionable. Yeah, they are sensitive.
They're sensitive to it as well. They can tell when mom and dad and whatever. If you ever had a baby, I think we talked about this one time before, that will go to somebody else and cry and pull back and
right.
not go
In
to someone. They can feel it.
Right. Let's go to some different topics. How is a man expected to show affection to mates, children, or relatives? You know, because so many guys, going back to their heart thing, you know, how many times do men tell other men that they love them, or they tell their sons that they love them? You know, you can see them doing it more to their daughters, but or even allowing their son to cry. You know, saying, you know, suck it up, boy. At what point, you know, even with other men, you know, can I cry? And I tell you, you know, for a while I held on to that stupid tradition. You know, I mean now I cry because I'm happy sometimes, you know,
Right.
and or just cry because I'm just so amazed that God just did something for me. Or, you know, last time I cried, you know, I think it was last week. My daughter, you know, had a had a problem with her back, and she was praying, and she said, God, I know that you want me to believe in you for real, and this is just a test of my faith. And I just broke down crying because I was just like, thank you, Lord, that my daughter really believes in you, and thank you, God, that, you know, she, you know, is standing firm on your word, you know, and thank you for allowing me to be a father, to be somewhat of a vessel to for her to even have that type of development and mindset, you know, to want to be faithful, you know, to God like that. And I mean, it just broke me down. I mean, you know, right there in front of it, it just broke me down and crying. I'm just like, Lord, I know you got to answer this prayer. I mean,
I know, yeah,
just,
you can't
you
like
can't
that.
not answer. And not that he wasn't, but I'm just saying,
You really can't.
has to manifest fast. You know what I'm saying? I mean, with that much faith and somebody coming to you humbly, in a child, the innocence of a child,
Yeah.
it's just like, because I didn't expect her. It was no prompting or anything. It was just like, I said, well, you got anything you want to pray? Because I do, and that's another part of being man. Allow, your children to take some leadership and make some decisions, because they have to learn to make decisions without you.
Yeah.
So if you don't lead them in making decisions while you're around, so you can help them with some of the decision making process, when they get away from you, how are they going to learn to make right decisions?
Yes.
I know I said a mouthful.
No. I totally get that, and it really, really is sad. I was in class on last Saturday, and there was a young man there, and there was a father that was with a daughter and some other parents or so. And after talking through it, I asked the dad, of course, please hug that young man on the way out. Please make sure that you do it, because real men can hug a real man, and that man knows that that's what that is.
Right.
That the men that are not real men, I think, are the ones who are very skeptical about whether they walk up to another brother and hug him or pat him on the back, or give him accolades about something. They're too worried about what it's going to look like and somebody's going to think.
Right.
The real men don't think,
right.
they really don't think even twice about that. You have to almost probably bring it to their attention. They say, "Oh, really? Oh, no, I didn't even think twice about hugging a brother."
Right.
Yeah.
And it's fear motivated based on other traditions.
Mm-hmm.
In other countries, there, like in Italy, men kiss each other on the cheek.
Yes.
Matter of fact, I still kiss my son on the cheek. Matter of fact, I can remember the last time my father kissed me on the cheek, and I think I was in preschool. He had dropped me off in preschool, and that's it's really my last memory of being dropped off at preschool by my dad. That's the last memory I had of him. And it was the last time he said, "Hey, come give me a kiss." And I leaned over the seat. He gave me, I gave him a kiss on the cheek and got out and went to school. I don't even remember what happened that day, but that's what I remember, from my dad. You know what I'm saying? And I guess, just based on traditions of men, he kind of, stopped that.
Distance that, like we're not trying to do. Yeah.
Right.
I'm not trying to create nothing here.
Right.
Which they didn't realize that would be pouring so much strength into you by being able to let you know that I can hug you, I can kiss you, I can love on you, and you're my son. I have a really, really good friend, and on Sunday, he said out loud, he said, "I'm in love with my son." And another guy said, "Man, I never heard anybody say it." He said, "Well, let me tell you, he's my son, and I will do whatever it takes for him, and I am in love with my son." He said, "Don't get it twisted. It don't have nothing at all to do with my
your
sexuality."
perversion
He said,
that you're trying to make it. That's right.
He said, nothing at all. He said, "But I would tell anybody." And he said, "I'm in love with my son."
And that goes back to these traditions of what do we mean when we say love?
Mm-hmm.
Or what do we mean when we say in love? So if I'm saying walking in love, or I'm in love, or I love somebody, it can mean all the same thing if we have a constant basis of what that word love means. That love, simply put, just means I am unconditionally sacrificing for the second party, without regards to what it's costing me. I want to, with a cheerful attitude, give to this person, even, and I don't want to cloud it when I say even when it hurts, because sometimes we have to be patient, and sometimes patience has a little pain involved in it, because
it does.
I just tell you, it's difficult to love someone when they are not in this triangle with you, meaning doing their part in terms of focusing on God to complete, that relationship, and experiencing, having to love someone, and not having to, but loving someone that I know, and I'm talking male female relationship right now, loving someone knowing that, they are not where I am with that, and just being at peace and accepting that I know that this is my mate. I know that, that's where I'm supposed to be. And even though they're not where we can be,
mm-hmm.
I have to respect their space and their uniqueness, and understand what I don't understand, and just focus on God and keep speaking over my mate so that they can allow that to manifest. Let me transition that to children. I'm in love with my children. And when I see them doing something crazy, I'm not trying to beat them up about it, but I am trying to make sure that there's clarity and understanding that I'm serious when I'm talking about this. You know, I'm very serious about what I want you to understand about the expectation of your behavior with certain things. I'm not going to keep, you know, going over this over and over again. But if this behavior happens up again, yes, I'm going to remind you that, especially if it's in a short period of time. Now, if it happened years ago, and then, you probably shouldn't bring it up. But if it's something that's happening, every chance, that
Very close
right,
in
proximity of
proximity.
time,
Yes.
yeah. I think that's proper to bring it up. Like you are learning this lesson, and even with, excuse me, even with your relatives, you know, you can walk in love, in the sense that, maybe you have a relative who wants to constantly come at you for money or
Okay.
favors. It doesn't necessarily have to be money. Come at you for something, but never give in return. Because we can have takers as family members, or mates, or friends in general. So when we have these situations, we can walk in love there. I love you and I see you not where I'm at, and I can tell in love.
Yeah.
And I can distance myself from always giving into what I determine based on my willingness to provide, or ability to provide, for my sanity, or my financial stability, or what have you, to say, I'm going to have to pull back, a little bit, and I can speak over you, and you should know whether or not you can talk directly to this relative about that or not. And sometimes these are difficult times, and that's walking in love. You know, we can keep doing the dysfunctional things and not leading in love, or we can keep doing the reactionary, no, I'm sorry, or we can do functional things, in terms of speaking over our mate, our children, our family members, or confronting them directly.
Is
And
that
if
what you're talking about? Showing the affection for
right,
them and so. Okay.
yeah, yeah,
Okay.
yeah, and that is affection, because you know, I don't think it's a big issue with hugging your relatives, you know, or I think in most families, men don't have a problem kissing their female family members on the cheek or anything like that, and I don't think it's a problem with shaking hands or hugging, other men, like you said,
Mm-hmm.
but just going into some of the more uh difficult situations, because I always want to talk about the difficult human times that we experience.
Okay.
So that everything isn't just gingerly, the great, well, what about these difficult times? Anyway, with that being said, when dealing with difficult relatives, or difficult mates, if you know that you can't directly talk to them about this particular issue, because how and what you're going to say is going to be misconstrued, because your mate or your family member, then that becomes an opportunity to speak over them, or to make it a prayer confession or something like that. And then you got that triangle. Even if they're not participating, at least you doing your part in it,
Right.
and you and God is more than them and the devils that they allow to come out their mouth.
And then oftentimes I think your level of consistency
Mm-hmm.
with how you show their affection, and they realize they know that you love them
Right.
because they see it constantly, and even when it is not saying something to them that they um, actually want you to say, or it's not given in their way, they still know that it is love because they have seen it consistently.
And that goes back to being tough.
Mm-hmm.
Because sometimes I gotta be tough enough to say, I love you in spite of how you hurt me. I love you in spite of the difficult that we are challenging. For example, if you know you're having a difficult time with a relative and you've tried to make peace and you apologize with it, hey, stand firm. You know, you ignore it. You know, there could be, you come offer them a hug, they don't want to hug you. At least it was on them. Their guilt and their shame made them turn away from the hug. And with your children, they're your child. You know, uh, uh, go ahead and just pull them to you and hug them up. Don't give them room to keep marinating to that bitterness, because what are you doing? You're allowing that devil to manifest within them. You allow that negative spirit to manifest within them. Be careful of what you allow to manifest by not being tough as a man, to stand firm on certain things versus be weak and allow reactions to constantly rule and reign and take you out and away from the will of God in your life.
And you hear that those stories like that quite often where men will say, I just stopped calling my children because it just was so hard. I don't think they want to do anything with me. Or I stopped calling over there because their mom gave me such a hard time. That's kind of stopped going and doing. And, as opposed to just being tough and saying, I'm